Hey guys and girls, movie fans, hope you're all well. And on this video I'm going to be talking about the recent film, which is called Come On, Come On, the latest from indie director Mike Mills, Joaquin Phoenix in the lead role. Now Mike Mills, a few years ago, released a film called 20th Century Women. I've got the poster up there on the screen. Was a bit of an indie hit around the time. Annette Bening was in it, Elle Fanning, Billy Crudup, a bunch of other people. And it was sort of like a family type, period type drama with this woman played by Bening and her group of not siblings, sorry, her family, but also her adopted family, and the idea is that it was representing kind of like three different generations of women, or three different generations in total, and it was set purposely. I think it was the end of the 70s, and it was looking at how things potentially was changing in America politically, and how it at one point it looked like it was going in a very sort of left-wing type, socialist type direction under Carter, but then how things changed when he left as president and what followed politically. So it was all about the changing of direction politically in America, and how there was a moment, and just how these different characters experience that and react to it. It was a very good film. I mean, quite underrated in some ways, but really good sort of low-key drama. Great cast, great performances, very natural, and a lot of diversity. So it brings me on to his new film, which I saw today at my local picture house, Come On, Come On. And Joaquin Phoenix is the lead. As I said, he plays a documentary film director who is on this sort of project, which we see partly open the film, where he goes to different states in America and interviews younger people and interviews them about their experiences and how they view the world, how that on certain issues like racial diversity, on the environment, on education, just different things, how they view the world and how they see the world going. And it's that's the whole point. He's getting different viewpoints from younger people, and he then is sort of tasked with looking after Jesse, who's his young nephew, 8-year-old, when he goes to see his mum, played by Gabby Hoffman, and she's having some personal problems because her husband or ex-husband, I wasn't quite sure if they were still together, but her husband and the father of Jesse is having mental health issues, and she has to go off and deal with him. And the Joaquin Phoenix character, Ronnie, his name is, he takes an interest in the boy and they start to bond. He takes him to New York with him when he's there to be working, and it's originally only supposed to be a week, but then it ends up being longer because problems escalate with the boy's mum and her partner, and she has to deal with that. And so the whole thing is that Ronnie has to look after Jesse in New York, and obviously he takes a liking to him, and he sort of shows him and gets him involved in some of the equipment and what he does, but it's about their whole relationship and how many ups and downs, and the whole sort of theme of the film is that Ronnie is this very kind of immature, quite infantile guy who has never quite grown up, and obviously he has a childlike bond with the kid, but that develops over the film, and there's some hard-hitting stuff just because of the stuff that's going on with the mum, and at various points you do get these interviews with the kids, these different young people, and talking about the world, and so it's kind of contrasted with the stuff with Ronnie and Jesse and their relationship, and how in a way I think there's definitely an overall message of the film, which is then people should just listen to younger people, listen to their fears, listen to their concerns, and just have a greater dialogue, and maybe sort of treat them more maturely, more as adults. Because I mean, at one point the mother says, to sort of, well, you've just got to be honest with him, you've got to just like give it to him straight and tell him the truth, that kind of thing. And that's an overriding message. And I didn't really like the film. It didn't really do a lot for me. I thought the subject was quite interesting. I really liked the opening with those interviews. And there were good moments in it. There are a couple of like powerful moments. And moments which are probably quite relatable. There's a moment where Ronnie loses Jesse in like a store, and because Jesse's like playing a game with him, he then loses his shit and sort of screams at him and sort of loses it, and then that's partly when he talks to the mum later, and she like advises him, and and that bit was quite effective, and that was quite likeable. And there's a couple of bits that sort of hit home quite well. The interview segments I did like generally, although they maybe overdid it a bit, but I did like those. It looks very pretty in black and white, but overall, I just found it very boring to watch, very slow moving, and very sort of self-indulgent and artsy-fartsy. I thought it was these very awkward, over-dramatic, like stroppy sort of middle-class artsy type, characters. And it's one of those films where I think it sort of lives or dies on whether you like the characters, whether you engage with them. And I just didn't really. I just thought the Joaquin Phoenix character was very like mumbly. It definitely has some mumblecore issues, this film, and I just found him very self-indulgent, and that a lot of the drama just felt kind of forced. There's a scene right near the end of the film where they finally come together, and there's like this big confrontation between him and Jesse in like, I think it's like a park or something, and he's trying to get him to say, it's all right if you're down, if you're not in a good mood, that's okay. And Jesse's like trying to convince him, but I am actually okay. And it leads to like a big shout, and they both scream, and it's one of these moments they have in like indie type films, which is trying to express something a bit more profound, and it's meant to be this quirky, sort of lighter but also more serious moment of them express. They're basically screaming like animals, that's the whole thing, and it like breaks the tension. But it's just one of these really annoying, quirky indie drama type moments that I just don't get on board with. As I said, I didn't really like the character. The mother I found quite annoying as well. I didn't really like her too much. I thought she wasn't as sympathetic as they sort of wanted her to be. At times I did question some of her decisions and how easy she went along with this. Because at first she was like putting up like defense, saying, "Oh, well, you want to take a 9-year-old to New York. Is this really a good idea?" And then she gets him to like assure her that then he'll find someone to sit with him when like Ronnie's at work, and like Ronnie just says, "Well, yeah, okay, I'll find someone," but he doesn't actually give her like a name at that point. But anyway, I'm not going to bash the mother too much. There were obviously moments where she was like sympathetic, but no, overall I didn't get on with the characters or the drama. I thought it was very sort of plodding and quite dull and just a bit self-indulgent, even though it sort of looked pretty and there was some good use of music. The interview scenes I appreciated, I liked those. And the end credits actually ends with a collection of them, and that's sort of how the film ends, which is a good choice because it makes you think. But But yeah, overall, I just didn't engage in the characters or the world. I thought they were way too uptight, way too like middle class and sort of stuffy, and not as sympathetic as I think the film wanted them to be. And so much of it was about like him and the kid, and I think another thing is it's also a little bit cliched. This cliche of, you know, this middle class guy who's very sort of childlike and, you know, a little bit uptight and hasn't really grown up, and then he has to like look after a kid, and, you know, the idea is that the kid's actually more mature than he is. That has been done in so many films, and I think it just felt a bit too, you know, been there, done that. Because that's the other thing, is I'm not quite sure how much new stuff this film really adds to the subject. I mean, it feels like a very contemporary film because as I said, the whole message is we don't listen to young people enough and their fears and concerns, and that ties into something like the whole global warming thing and what's going on, and that's a perfectly valid message to have. It's just I'm not too sure if it actually brings that much new to it, and it just feels a bit on the nose and a bit, yeah, been there, done that before, and I don't actually know if it gives that much insight, apart from obviously those interviews, which were quite well done and quite thought-provoking. But overall, I don't think there was enough of a connection to that, and then the stuff with Jesse and the kid. Well, sorry, Ronnie and Jesse, but obviously we have to spend most of the movie with them. So I mean, that's the problem for me, because I didn't really like the characters too much in the drama, and the film lives and dies on that. I think 20th Century Women was more effective because it opened it up and you had a range of characters and a diverse set of characters where there was a bit more light to it, and there was a bit more, I think, just richness and just relatability. I think they felt more like realistic characters, or at least characters you could sort of connect to. I didn't really feel like this, although there were one or two moments. But yeah, for me, 20th Century Women, a much better film. I just found this kind of tedious at times, a lot of it. So that's a big downer for me. It's a bit like me and Rachel always say, the cardinal sin for a film is to be boring. And sadly, I found this boring. I much prefer and I much recommend 20th Century Women more, but that's just my thoughts. So I am going to go low on the score. I'm going to give it 4 out of 10 because not being able to engage enough with the characters and the story and the general thing, and the film lacking really momentum for me, I think drags it down a lot. So I can't recommend it. 4 out of 10 for me. But for anyone that's seen it, let me know your thoughts, because I know people have quite liked this generally. It's been getting positive responses and reviews. So if you've seen it, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Share me out on social media. You can also ding the bell on YouTube to get notifications. You can also support me for as little as $1 a month on Patreon. That's patreon.com/boardnow if you want to support the channel that way. And I also remind you, me and Rachel McDonald do horror movie reviews, and we're returning this week. We will be talking about the 4th Scream movie, Scream 4, in the run-up to the new Scream movie, which comes out next week. So we're getting up to date with that in the run-up to the new movie, which is exciting. And we'll also be ranking the Scream movies. So look out for our thoughts on Scream 4 coming up this week. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.